live streaming. It looks like we are live on YouTube as well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Chabe. I'm an Senior AEC Technical Specialist here at ATG USA. Primary background is in structural design. Before moving over to the consulting part of the industry, becoming a Bluebeam certified instructor, as well as a couple extra certifications along the way from Bluebeam, but the highest ranking one would be BCI. And then we have today joining us Kyle Davis from our support team, which gets back to you. Sorry, let me see that. Around 15 minutes response time, either by email or I've heard some people say they jump out of their seat because they weren't prepared for a phone call right away. But I'll let Kyle introduce himself as well.
Hey, thanks, Michael. So yeah, I'm Kyle Davis. I'm the technical support specialist here at ATG. I've been doing this for about 11 years for technical support. I've been working with the Autodesk software and Bluebeam for that whole time. And I actually became one of the Bluebeam technical consultants or something like that. We got certified as well. So I've been for that for a few years now, and just been mainly on the support side of it. Every now and then I do some consulting of talking about deployments and things like that, but it's also covered within the support area where if you have any issues, we help you out. So glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. We're glad to have you here today. Kyle's been usually joining in and helping us with some of the chat questions. But feel free today, any support related questions that you've had in the past, and we'll let Kyle kick it off. I'm going to actually exit out of my screen. We're going to talk about a little bit about deployment before we start off here. As I review this, we'll let Kyle turn the wheel. Chris had a support case, and I'm going to see if we can go through it and maybe troubleshoot it here today. If not, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask along the way. But if there aren't any questions, we'll just let Kyle kick it off. I'll stop my share. You can start your share of what he would like to show today. And first, I think we're starting around deployment.
Correct. So with a lot of the releases of Bluebeam comes the questions of installing, and with administrative stuff of basically how is IT going to get this out, or how is managers going to get it out. So with the releases of multiple of the years, you can get the deployment packages for them. Basically what you just do is you can go to bluebeam.com and you can search for Bluebeam deployment. And then once you get to that, you will then have a few links that I have up here. So there's one here for the Bluebeam deployment, and there are going to be ones for each of the years. Some of them are slightly different, so you have to get the installer for that year. So, and then there is the download the deployment package. So this is where you have the MSI that you can download for either 32-bit or 64-bit. You just download those MSIs. And when you download it, you're going to get just a zip file that you extract. And then it's going to have all these elements in here for all the deployment functionalities, including the Bluebeam Review Configuration Editor, EXE. And then we'll talk about this one here in a little bit. But so I recommend when you get this guide, there is the guide here that you want to go through. That talks about what's within the MSI package, within the updates. You can do the auto update. You can do as the introductions, a SharePoint. So all these can be done within the deployment package here. And of course, the biggest portion is planning your deployment. And then you have your compatibility chart. And then you have the administration guide for post installation. So you can do things afterward too. And then there's the review configuration editor portion, and then the enterprise. Not much difference, but we can use other softwares to deploy this out as well. So there's the Bluebeam review configuration editor, but you can also use this with other software like Microsoft SCCM or other deployment softwares as well. And then it just talks about the MSI packages for each of the installations. So actually, when I was in that folder here, there is the Bluebeam OCR MSI. And then there is the other MSIs in here for other features and other things you want to add. So if you do not want to include OCR, you don't have to. Again, this is an extreme feature. So if you're not pushing extreme, you can have that not install because if you're not going to need it.
You won't be able to use it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be there, but it won't be active unless you purchase a license.
Yeah.
And we'll get into one of the other topics I'll get into is what you can do post installation. There is command line options we'll talk about that you can do afterward. So.
Yeah, there was one the other day that I remember you sharing with somebody on here. That was a really good one.
Yep, definitely. There's a lot of cool things you can do after the fact. I will say when I first got into review, some of this stuff in here and the deployment stuff was much harder. So to give you a little background of it, when I first started using review, they didn't have their own configuration editor. You had to use some other deployment tool. And there was an MSI editor, and I can't remember the name of it, but because Bluebeam kept switching which ones they recommend. But you could edit the MSI, and then you can put in the code for each of the scripts that you wanted to put in there.
Yeah, that was part of our certification where you had to do a code. Yep. It still is part of the BC Bluebeam Certified Support Representative certification is still some of the coding script line, which is kind of fun if you're in that realm. But if you're not, and you're not doing coding all day for deployments, you're kind of get a little lost. But
yes,
they are definitely still here. So
yeah, it's really nice, and it is in this document here. This web page talks about all that. So when we get to when I scroll down here, there's using the SCCM, and then right here, here's all those updates that we were talking about that supported optional properties where we can put in the serial number and product key. Then you can turn on the auto update or the disable analytics, the default viewer. And every single one of these, we would have to go in there and put in that string itself in the older versions. And then with other softwares like SCCM, or even if you still have a MSI editor software that you can open the MSI and directly you can put in these things into it, and it will then, when it installs, it will then have these be installed with it. So some of the cool things with this and the deployment softwares, the SCCM, the whole point of it is to go ahead and get this installed how you want it, without having to install it manually and start customizing and throwing in all the other stuff afterward. One of the biggest ones I liked was that I can have it already have the serial number and product key ready without having to, install it and then have the users manually register it
and show
have
them
to
their
send it out to everyone.
Key.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And then there is the option to put in a trial. So you can push that to them as well for, trying it out, and then you can activate it later, which I'll get into later, how you can do that after post installation. So this portion here is just talking about, again, what's in the MSI editor portion where you can disable stuff. We had, I think the last session or the session before did talk about updates, if they wanted to disable updates. And that was this portion here, that you could do this before installation or during the installation, you can put that code in there to disable updates. Post installation, it's a different procedure. So.
And it's not just that abbreviated code, by the way. There's a syntax you have to have before this that you additionally add the BB auto update as well.
Correct.
So just be aware of that, everyone that's listening.
And then there's in here, we have administrator buttons. You can have those be turned on if you have certain things you want in there. This one, disabling check for pending reboot. So if the computer needs to be rebooted, you can have the check in there and disable or have it need to reboot. Because one of the other things about reviews installation is that it does require reboot a lot of the times because of things it's putting into Windows itself. So it has the stapler, it has other things that are installing within Windows. So it's like, hey, I need to be restarted because I did all this. So.
And if we're in the middle of a project, do we want it to restart when an employee, for some reason, gets an update pushed to them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So it'll disable the option to reboot, and then you might need to reboot later then instead. So. And then with the review 2018, review offers 2 modes of markup and view. By default, the software is installed in markup mode and then can be switched between. But if you wanted to deploy it as in view mode, you can do that. So if you need to install this on a lot of computers, but have it just be in view mode, because all they need to do is just open a PDF and look at it. Don't need to do anything else. You can push to those users a view mode.
And that's the free version, right?
Correct. It's like what they used to call a Bluebeam View. It's they got rid of it. It's all one installer. You just go into view mode.
Great.
So. And then there's the deploying the OCR portion. So this is a separate thing if you're just deploying this portion of it for OCR. Otherwise, if you're doing it within the entire installation, you don't have, this will just be a portion of that you're including.
But if you did the one you were saying earlier, which is don't want it because we don't have Extreme, but then you upgraded, maybe you have to come back and
then you have to come back. So this is like a post installation, like, hey, I need this now.
Okay.
So deploy it to all the users. And then now here's a good one. Optional pre-check installation is you're unsure of what's already on the computer. Here it's giving you the ability to check what version's there. So you can come back and report what version is there. And then if it already has the latest version, you can write into the script to basically say, don't install, just move on. Because otherwise you're going to get a failure. Or there are times when, I know for Autodesk software, sometimes when it's already installed or other add-ins, when it's installed, you run it again, it actually could mess up the software that's installed. It's because it's trying to both install it and it thinks it needs to uninstall it instead.
And then you're losing stuff.
And then you lose your software. So.
And the great thing too about review is it will uninstall your older version, which is you don't have to, but there's no reason to have your older version of review. It's not like an Autodesk product where you need to have older versions of the software. The application, if you're running 19, there's no point in having 19 on there if you're going to install 20.
Correct. Yeah, agree with that. It does give you, if you manually install, and then even with the deployment stuff, you do have the ability to say install side by side or replace. Every now and then, like for me personally, as a test scenario, I will do side by side. So I will install the latest, run it, test it, play it out with it, make sure I have my settings correct. And then I can uninstall 19. And then when you deploy it to your users, if everything is set up the way you need to, when you push it, you can have it uninstall the previous version for you. Mm-hmm. So first play, install it manually side by side, make sure you get it all set up the way you want, and then you can push it to the other users to get rid of it, the other ones. Mm-hmm. So I recommend that with most software, even Autodesk software, AutoCAD and Revit. Even though I don't need all versions of AutoCAD, I'll still play with the next one and make sure it's good, and then I'll push it to the others.
As you're scrolling, David asked, when using these deployment methods, do you need to reload your custom tools? What do you need to ensure your custom tools aren't wiped out by a deployment?
So there are scripts in here that if you're going from an older version to a newer version, I would recommend backing up your settings. And then in the deployment, you can push in the net config that then points to your tool palettes or the tool chest. Got the word right there, tool chests. and other custom things in there that you can deploy with it so that it will point to the locations for it.
Yeah, and you can also deploy with a profile, which would be linked also to your tool sets. So it just depends on how you want to deploy and what you want to link to. It could be from your backup settings or it could be from your profile.
Yep. I do believe there are. I like the next question was about your profiles, and you answered it. So just like she said, yeah. So it's similar to that with profiles, tool chest, those sort of things. It comes across on that. So those can be backed up, deployed as well afterward. Excuse me.
Yeah, there's somewhere in here. I remember doing it, and it's like profile something, and you just point to the profile you want it to grab, and it will upload your profile. Oh, here it is.
So yeah, so there's I mean, profiles is mentioned in here a few times. As you can see, it says 15 in here. But within the review configurator editor, this is one thing that you can do, such as profiles, tool chest, hatch patterns, and line styles. So, and then this could be doing during the deployment or post installation deployment, custom assets such as profiles. And then I know there's one in here, custom assets shared, such as this is within the guide of exporting and gathering and staging these items. So one of the things of setting up the staging is that you can go in there and configure this with your net configuration. Then that gets deployed. When you open it, it's going to be there.
Yes, and one question was, do profiles tool chest updates need to be pushed manually, or can you have it automatically push the update on a schedule? From what I'm aware of, currently right now it's static, right? You'd have to say this needs to be updated when you update a tool set if someone's using it like on a network. I'm guessing this is the way your question is, Liz. Like if I have a profile or a tool set that's on the network that it's company standard, how can I automatically update? Currently, from my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, there isn't an automatic update, right? They would have to hit reload from wherever it was because it's not dynamic, it's static at that point when you've uploaded it. Is that correct?
I will have to actually double check myself on that one. I want to say you might be able to do some kind of PostScript installation stuff to push that out. I think that'd be command line options or group policy thing to push and say, go ahead and update this tool chest or profile as well.
Okay.
So I could definitely look into that, and if we can get contact information, we can definitely you can contact us and we can look at that more.
Yeah, I'll write that down, Liz, and we'll get back to you on that. Because then I wonder, is there a Windows command line push for everyone's computer that you could auto update, right? That syntax for it. So I'll put that.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to research that one because I know that there is ways you can do, again, the post installations of creating a script that says copy this profile here to here, and you can schedule that with group policies or things like that to push to users at given times. But I don't remember how they do once you get into review if that pops up and refreshes already.
This is, yeah, we've got company profiles and tool chests that I update periodically. They currently saved in the shared folder OneDrive, but this might be a better way. Yeah, OneDrive, or we could also store it in projects, but then projects, if you were to update it, you would have to create a new one for them to pull from. So yeah,
you have to download and get it from there.
David said this would be good to share with folks who manage deployments, as they could wipe out someone's tools overnight without realizing. Yes. And always just periodically you can back up yourself. Do you want to hop in review real quick and show them how to back up their settings?
Actually, I thought it was in review, but unfortunately I've been having some issues with my Windows taskbar not showing me the icon.
So yeah, there's a way under admin.
Yep. So here you click on the review and then administrator. And then when you go to Actually, they keep changing this. Like I'm so used to being on one of these other tabs, but now they changed it here. Where actually, hold on, where did they move it to?
Is it just under preferences now? Actually, I don't think you have.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, my brain keeps going back to like 17 and stuff where it was in one location. But
well, this was even in 18. You had to go to admin, but from
here we go.
Preferences. Yeah.
Yep. So under preferences, preferences, and then admin, there is a backup here.
Yep.
And then this is where you can also do restore.
Yeah, and restore. And that's to bring back your settings, right?
Correct. Restore is where you're picking a file and then restoring your settings back to that one.
And Liz says she went over it in the latest blog for the reset settings, so it looks like she's covered that. Great, Liz. Teamwork makes the dream work. So she posted it. So feel free, everyone that's in here, to check out her blog post. Again, this is a community, so if you have anything that you've posted as well, feel free to shoot it in the chat. Thanks, Liz. And CJ, the background, if you could post her link to her blog post that she did also in the YouTube, because I'm betting some people in the YouTube may want it as well. Awesome. All right, so back to some of this deployment stuff.
Yeah. So one of the other, or the biggest thing for this is if you don't have a deployment software FCCM or any of those other ones, there is just the simple review configuration editor. So let me get back down to that portion. So using the review configuration editor. Again, when review was first kind of pushed out for deployment stuff, this was not an option. So we had to do the MSI editors. We had to get all that coding and stuff. So
I had to bring out my notes from 10 years ago.
every year had to do like, oh, where was that document? How did I do this? That, and if you don't keep up on it because you're only doing it once a year, then yeah.
Yep.
So with the review configuration editor, this makes things a little easier for those that don't necessarily have a deployment software. You can then use this. So in here, there is the ability to create a new deployment, patch a deployment. So if you're wanting to update it, give it new information, if you have new tool palettes or tool chests. I keep saying tool palettes. I had AutoCAD on my brain this morning.
AutoCAD imprinted.
Yep. So
grab the wrong coffee.
Deployment. There we go. Yep. Well, I don't have a Bluebeam cup, so that.
Yeah. Well, shout out if anyone's here from Bluebeam.
There you go.
Here. No? Okay.
And then, so patch a deployment is if you want to update it. So like change the serial number, change those sort of things. I misspoke on the up profiles. That's under here, under the deployment extensions, push out custom profiles, tool chest, and more. And then here, check licensing. Basically what that does is it launches and goes to the license lookup, whereas your serial number and product key and the primary contact, you say get list. This is then going to report back how many licenses you have used, where they're installed. It'll give you a list of that. So this is good for admins to know where it is. So if you don't have the Bluebeam gateway, you can go here and kind of at least check to see where it is. So.
And maybe I'll show the Bluebeam gateway today. I have the video that has everything blurred out, so people aren't pulling IP addresses away.
Yes, there we go. So with this, just for example here, come up new deployment location. Where's the select the Bluebeam MSI. So here I'm just going to simply go to my folder. I'm going to select the MSI there. And then where's the deployment folder going to be? So this is where, again, I'm going to create a folder here. I will have this all set up here. So I'm going to create a new one for Bluebeam 20. Now here, if you are creating a new one or updating it, you could say use configuration from a previous one so that you can kind of keep those settings, but make a new one here. And then you get to put in your serial number and product key right there. Otherwise, again, here's the option to say trial version, which means you don't need to put in a serial number or product key. So as soon as I check that, I actually can't click in these at all. But if I turn that off, then I have to put in a serial number and a product key. So just for this demonstration, so I can get by, use trial. Then you get to delayed authentication, which is that when it's enabled, review displays authentication installed until the end user opens review. Then it's going to authenticate the installation. So it's going to activate it, all that. If you turn this off, it activates right away. So it's trying to say basically, yes, you're going to be activated on all these computers. Delayed means user first launches it, it then authenticates it and says you're active. So this is good for those that, especially the enterprise one with the was it the 5% overage? You can push this, it'll activate right away, or it will delay the activation so that you know at some point if multiple users are opening it, you can have that be delayed a little bit because maybe someone's out of the office that month for vacation or something. So let it wait.
Yeah, we don't want them to use the license at this point yet, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we want to push it out to them, but wait until they get back for the license. So just in case we run over, we can quickly find it out. So, and then here set as default PDF viewer, and then in-app update. So if it'll notify the user that there's an update, that can be turned off right away. Enable welcome page. So when you open up review for the first time, you're going to get the welcome screen that then has the options of the video and open up a sample PDF and all that. And then a desktop shortcut and a stapler desktop shortcut. You can set that. Languages, if you want to be in French for some reason, if you need it to be in because you have a different office in another country, or it just looks at your operating system and uses that. So the preferences path. So that's if you wanted to path those preferences to some other one. Otherwise, it just goes to the default location. Default page
preferences
size
would be like alt resize text box, right? Those kind of preferences.
Yeah, correct. Whatever in your settings there for the preferences. So when I'm inside review preferences, it's a lot of this stuff in here.
Okay.
So your general interface tools, things like that. These are your preferences. So if you're wanting to pick a custom one, you can pick that ahead of time. Job options. Standard. I will say a little job options. UNC and fully qualified pass for your custom job options file. Have you heard of that one, Michael?
No.
I was to say I'm gonna have to look up that one too. Like, wait a minute. Job options path.
That's one, and that's it. Jobs.
No, here we go.
Oh.
No, it just talks about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to research what that really is, because I have not heard of job paths in review.
So here's a question from David. Might be a future topic, but what is the advantage of having the stapler desktop shortcut?
Well, I will say that's kind of why it's not turned on here. In my opinion, it's not needed to be a desktop shortcut. The primary reason for that is that I can go into Windows Explorer and use the stapler from here. I'm not going to open up the stapler from the Windows desktop or from the start menu. I'm going to do it from File Explorer. And what that is let me find a PDF here. I'm just going to go to one that I know where it is quickly enough. So if I right click on a PDF or multiple files, the stapler is right here. So combine files in review or convert files to review. So if I right click on a Word document or other file, I can convert that using the stapler without having to come in here and open and say stapler, open it, or double click on the icon and do all that here. I just like doing it from File Explorer. So it's a personal decision. Do you want a desktop icon where you open stapler, then you grab your files, or right click on your files and say, do this?
Great.
So, and then I think, in my opinion, that's why it's defaulted off.
As I say, I've never had the shortcut.
Yeah, during manual installation, I think it's also defaulted. Just don't do it. Don't put a desktop icon. Where in the deployment, you could say, yeah, sure, put it if you want to. So, and then we get all the features. What do you want to enable? Enable and disable the features below. Do you want to disable the administrator for people? So again, that is when you go into the review, or I can't even spell Bluebeam administrator, or when you click on review and you say administrator, you can disable this so that users don't come in here and start messing with it, so that you can only do it for certain ones. So that's if you want to disable it. Digital signatures, edit text, export to Office, product updates, redactions, register license, self-sign certifications, and translate markups. So again, it gives you all these features. Some of these, like the redaction, that's only in extreme. So you can, if you don't have extreme, you can go ahead and turn that off anyway. And then the register license, if you don't want the user to go through and register, you can disable that, and then you'll have to do a command line for that. And then the plugins. So if you have, and then it states up here, if you have CAD and Extreme versions, what plugins do you want? And it's going to, in this list here, it's not going to check what system you already have installed. It's simply going to say, here's what I can go into. Do you want it? So like, I don't even have AutoCAD LT. I don't have ProjectWise. I don't have SketchUp, don't have SolidWorks, but it's still in here so that you can, it will be available if you need it. And then now you say, now it just defaults here to say, hey, where's the deployment going to? Then you could say skip pending reboot. So that would be, again, that the installer detects if there's a reboot needed, and then it skips it if it does, so that you can reboot later on, so you don't have to reboot while it's finished installing, all of a sudden it reboots. So, and then silent install. If that is checked, you're just going to simply get a quick progress bar going by, and then it'll finish. If you turn this off, then the user actually has to click a button or so to continue the installation. And then you just simply hit create. Which
we're not, but you probably will.
Yeah. Well, I may go back to create one for, if I had back at the office on the server, I could create one for the rest of the company. But
that's true.
Yeah. And then now, if I do say I don't have one right now, but I was going to say, if I go back to the very beginning, I could say update deployment, so I can change the settings of it. So later on, if I decide we need the plugins, I can go in there and update the deployment and say push the plugins as well for future updates or plugins.
Okay, so that's something you could use. You could still use this config editor while people have it downloaded, but if you wanted to push something to them, you could.
Correct. So right here, if I've already created the deployment, I can then say patch a deployment, and then change the settings of that current deployment so that new installations will get this.
Okay.
Now, again, this is new installations.
Not existing.
Existing installations, I have to push those by a command prompt or other script thing here. This is mainly for more existing or new installations here.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about this deployment? The one thing I did see from yours, Chris had a support related question, a rendering issue with some of the images. I guess my question to you, Chris, did you export that PDF out and open it up in review? The next thing would be the coding behind the image. Did you create the PDF from Bluebeam Review Writer? So is it a PDF that you're opening up in review for this issue that you're seeing?
I think what I'm kind of reading in the case is it looks like he opens in another software like Adobe and PDF, and they look slightly different from one another.
Mm-hmm. I can see it. One's shaded and one's not. Downloaded from the web. So review, I know for a fact, and this will probably be because my next question would say, let's reach out to support and see from Bluebeam to see what the main issue is causing it from the coding side. But they're going to also default to say, what was the PDF written by? Because JPEGs do get written in a different manner viewport wise, and images can be coded in a different manner as like GIFs or TIFFs. So I always recommend creating it as a Bluebeam PDF, and you can do that from the file create from.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would just recommend doing that, or doing Control+D, I think it is, to check what PDF writer it was written from, and just creating it as a Bluebeam written PDF and see if that solves your issue. If that still doesn't solve your issue, let us know, and then maybe we'll loop in, because that's more of a graphic backend rendering issue. So alerted Chris, it's a PDF. I just downloaded it from a large company. Okay, Jason's on YouTube. You alerted Chris, so I'm guessing you all work together. So yes, I would probably rewrite it as a Bluebeam written PDF. So you can check it, go to document to make sure it is, if that is the case, and you can see this document properties Control-D at the top. Check what the writer is. If not, then you can recreate it as a Bluebeam written PDF from create from file. And you can create it as a Bluebeam written PDF, which is the create button to the left, Kyle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oops.
Yeah, create. Nope.
Wow.
Yep. Create. And then there from file. Yeah. I don't believe the save as does rewrite it. I think you have to do the create from file. Is that correct, Kyle?
I believe so as well, because it's like basically redoing it. Or another one that I know Bluebeam has suggested a lot of times on cases like that is when there's an issue with some certain PDFs and things like that one, they basically just they recommend to reprint to PDF using Bluebeam. So sometimes you just come in there and you just say file, print, pick Bluebeam again, print it, and this will kind of go through the file again and kind of reprocess it, similar to the create file. I know there is differences between them, but it's doing a similar thing of just remaking the PDF using Bluebeam.
One Jordan has, we have recently had Bluebeam crashing when punching on site. Any recommendations? Just started happening. My question to you, Jordan, would be, what is your mobile devices on site? And then we can kind of go from there. What
are
do
you using an iPad or Surface?
Surface. What do you usually do, Kyle, when someone comes to you and their review is crashing, if it ever happens or comes your way?
Well, we definitely try to isolate the issue, narrow down if it's going to be, is it just one computer, all computers? Is it all PDFs, one PDF? Because if it comes down to it's only one PDF, that PDF probably has some corruption in it or something like that. So we might have to repair it or reprint the PDF. That's been a lot of times, again, remaking the PDF has solved that quite a bit. So one of the first go-to thing I've always done is pick Bluebeam PDF, print it, and it seems to clear up a lot of those issues. If it's a surface, I guess it would also depend on the amount of hard drive space or RAM you might have. Because if you have a lot of tasks going on, I know some of those surfaces, some of the smaller ones only come with like 4 gigs of RAM, which should be plenty for review. But if you're doing multiple tasking and then doing the punch list, you can be taking up a lot of that memory there. And graphics too, but that's not as big as a thing with review, but it could be still something there too.
Yeah, overloading that Surface Pro.
Yeah, it really depends on the version of it. So
okay.
and then one of the other big ones, which I know has on support side of things, one of my first go-to things is when clients say, "Hey, we're having issue with this, this, and this." The first thing I recommend, go to administrator, help, reset settings. This probably clears up 85% of the cases out there. And now, as we were talking about earlier, if you do the reset settings, this is going to wipe out all your custom settings. So when you come back into review, it's going to pop up. It's going to give you the welcome page. Your profiles might be gone. But then that's when you can do the under the preferences, the admin, restore backups. I would recommend a backup again before reset, and then sometimes the restore can work too. But it really depends on what went wrong. Sometimes doing a backup, reset, and then restore still clears out the issue because the reset does other things that when it restores, it doesn't put whatever was bad back. So. Because if your backup was, let's say, you made some customizations, you backed it up last week, and then something went wrong, you reset and you restore, whatever happened between that week is not restored back. So.
One question, is this an extreme version? Chris, are you asking for which task were we doing that was an extreme version? Because we covered a little ground in between there. Yep. The create PDF?
No, this is in all versions. And then the print one is also the other one that's in every single version. So you always get the ability to print the PDF to PDF.
Print from.
Yep. PDF. Well, it's just like when we were talking about if you're opening Adobe and it looks different than in Bluebeam, because it was created in Adobe or created with another PDF writer, you're basically recreating it kind of as a Bluebeam type of PDF too.
And it's not to say, because Bluebeam still follows the ISO standard, right? But it's the other software that is producing something that could be off, right? And that happens a lot where that writer is, again, encoding those basically viewports of whatever those images are as something different, like a JPEG, and overloading the data. So just be aware of that. Bluebeam does a lot when you open up a PDF in review in terms of analyzing the data of whatever's in there. So it's always good to, if you have the time, to create from that file. Can you reach out to my coworker? Chris, it's Jason's on YouTube here. If you've seen the, she typed in the all panelists. But yeah, Jason, for you, Chris, says he's going to give it a try. So hopefully, since Jason is listening in from YouTube, you all can do an internal Slack or whatever communication device you have saying that you're good to go. Yep. Thanks, Chris. Tuning in just from 2 different areas. One's on YouTube Live and one's in the in the chat here. Remember, we do YouTube Live, but you're always welcome to join the actual link. Yeah, Jason said he got it to work. Great, so we solved it.
Nice.
Awesome. That's a win for us live here today. Any other questions? If not, we'll have Kyle starting to maybe we can ask Kyle what's his most question that he gets asked around Bluebeam review. If not, I can also take over and we can see what the enterprise license looks like. If anyone wants to see what that looks like and why we may want to have enterprise licensing structure on our Bluebeam licenses.
As we're getting to that, one more thing I wanted to bring up here was this command line options. This is the post installation stuff. One of the big keys here, and I'm going to work with Bluebeam on this one, is to update their page here. Because as you can see here, currently it says 2016 on this. And then it says that, hey, if you want to do command line stuff, you go to this exe, which is located here. However, this location here is no longer where it is. It is actually in a slightly different folder for review 20. So it is actually here. It's still in the program files, Bluebeam software, Bluebeam review, and then 20, but then it's just directly in the folder called review, not push button PDF. So that folder does exist. So if I come in here, there is the push button view PDF, but that file, that PD Manager 5 exe is not here. So if you you're going to do command line options and you see this path here, just note that is old path. It is actually in the newer path of just simply going to 20 review. And then if I go to PD Manager, it's right there. So if you're doing a command prompt, this is the code, or this is the path you want to put into that exe there.
That looks like just an executable file, right?
Correct. So you can do that with command prompt. So when I go into command prompt, I just call up that exe in the command prompt, and then I put in these other strings.
Okay.
Or within a script, you call that out. So if not everyone's familiar with scripts, I can come in here and do stuff like /i or /update and do that. We'll put in the path of the exe first, and then put in that / these updates or / reinstall the printer, reinstall the update, things like that. So this could be one of those that actually being on support wise, you kind of mentioned what is one of the cases we get. One of them is my PDF does not give me the save dialog box after printing. The typical solution for that is to restart the port monitor or reinstall the print driver.
Okay.
And so that is through the command prompt that you can do the can here. Or if you open up Bluebeam Administrator Printer, this is where you can restart the port monitor. And then right here is the reinstall print driver. Now, one hidden trick that when you're just looking at this page, you'll have no idea it's there. If you go to Bluebeam's website, go through there, you'll find it. But if you right click on reinstall printer, you get install printer and uninstall printer. So that is one that I've done on support, is uninstall and then install. So instead of just reinstall. So yeah, it's kind of one of those that you don't think about when you're just looking at this page, and most people don't think you can right click on a button.
Yeah, it should just be a clickable left click. Who right clicks on an already selectable button?
Correct. You would not. I mean, I've never had it in any other software that feature. So this is, and I send pictures like this all the time to clients and my support cases, like, go here, right click on this, and then I'll take a screen cap of that and show it. Because, again, people are like, right click, why would I right click on that?
It's a button.
Exactly.
So Chris from the YouTube says, yeah, so the create from file is actually under file. We were talking about the document menu for checking how the document was written, because that'll bring up the file, PDF info, whatever's open. So it's file, create from file, but if you want document information, it's document properties.
Correct. And that's also should be available in any version.
Yep. Just Control D just to see who's written it. And it'll say the writer of whatever it is below.
Yeah, I was going to open up a PDF and show that here too while we're in it then. Again, I always go to my source that I know exactly where a PDF is, because so many times I'm like, where'd it go? So yeah, document properties. Then it comes up in here and it gives you information. And right here you can see application was Microsoft Word, and the PDF producer was Microsoft Word. So basically they opened up Microsoft Word, said print to PDF, or convert to PDF, and it created it from Word itself. So it didn't use another print driver. It just simply was Word's convert to PDF feature.
Yep. And usually when I don't see Bluebeams there, I'll do a create from to kind of troubleshoot a solution for whatever is the issue. And you have that setting set up so you can grab stuff from your project, huh?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't have it turned off that it has that. It just so I have to double click on that and then I can grab a PDF.
I have it too when I'm doing training. Everyone's like, why do you have a first window before your file windows? Oh, I was creating dashboards.
Right. Yeah, it's just some of the features, like, and even in Word, I always hated that it's just like a simple save. If you haven't saved yet, it wants to default to OneDrive. It's like, that's not what I want to do.
It's not my intention.
No, it's like, I want to save to disk.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Are we all clear from the YouTube side? I'm guessing, since we haven't had anything roll by from you, DJ, CJ over there. And all clear? Any questions from here internally on the actual webinar area? I guess Zoom chat is what we should call it. All right. Did anyone here want to see the enterprise licensing portal? Maybe? If I don't hear a yes, we won't go over it. Then from there, what would be more administrative items that we'd want to know about in review from your point of view, Kyle?
Well, I guess some of the administrator stuff would just, there was that, again, the lookup table that I talked about, that if you know what your licenses are, you want to know where they're installed and, things like that. That would be the biggest one. And you can get access to that just by going to the Bluebeam and doing lookup. But again, there's also, I think I have it. Yeah, I have it bookmarked, but it's just simply bluebeam.com/reg lookup. This will be extremely helpful for those that are, hey, I don't know where this was installed and activated, those sort of things. So you can look it up and this will tell you where it is. That's one of a huge thing, because then, hey, I need to go to this computer and unregister it. And some of the other big key ones with this is that, if a computer was wiped before you unregistered, Bluebeam still thinks it's registered there. You actually have to unregister it or uninstall it to remove it. Now, Michael, I don't know if you, I was trying to look it up real quick for my memory, but I know in the past that review, when you uninstalled it, would also unregister it at the same time. But I want to say I saw somewhere in 20, or I think it was either, it could be either 18, 19, or 20, or all above, that uninstall no longer does that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Does it unregister when you uninstall it, would be the question.
Right. Because I know there was at least some of the versions that typically uninstalling it does not unregister it. So here it actually, from this link, it actually said something of go to review unregister. Then it says you can go into here. So select unregister. Yeah. So this one doesn't tell me for fact that it will unregister. So,
but here it's instructing you to unregister
correct
first. So,
yep.
why
so that's
would
why
it
I
tell
was
you to
wondering if
unregister?
it's doing that. So transferring it, unregister, then uninstall. So there's a couple links. So I'm still going to recommend that too anyway. I don't recommend just going in and uninstalling because every now and then, I know other softwares don't have that feature either. So be safe, unregister first. Now, if a computer crashes, goes down, you know, the only way to then do it after that is you can create a case with ATG, and then we'll contact Bluebeam and have them unregister a computer because they're the only ones that can do that. They don't give ATG the flexibility of it because it is their licensing, so they do it.
Yeah, that was, were you answering Chris's question? His question was, what is the best way to kick someone off your license? That's what you were doing?
I actually, as I was talking, I happened to see it.
Okay.
So it was a little bit beforehand, but it was perfect. The best way to kick someone off a license. It depends on your license.
Yep. I can show the portal too.
Yeah. If you are the perpetual or maintenance license, the only way to kick someone off is to unregister them, but you have to be on the computer. But if it's not available, then you have to contact us or contact Bluebeam to unregister. But if you have the other license, that would be what Michael can talk about.
And I'm going to be posting this soon on LinkedIn as well, but that's the teaser video. Hold on, I have it somewhere in here. So we're not going to have the music playing in because I'll just talk through it. Instead of showing you our actual portal, because you'll see a lot of things in there. Let me mute this too because I'm going to hear myself talk. But you'll have the ability to go into your gateway, which you natively do anyways, but you may not be able to see anything because you can't have any access in it. But you have portal.bluebeam.com. You do not need to type in gateway because it'll just bring you to the gateway. But in here, you'll be able to select your account. We selected our account, and we'll go a little forward here in the video as I slowly fast forward. As I clicked on it, you then will see which licenses you have in terms of your review licenses. And if you have active maintenance, you have access to drawings. And if you log in, you also might be able to change or add gateway admins who can help you maybe manage your licenses, right? And also manage your users to upload to drawings. And as we go forward a little bit here, I'm going to go and click on our licenses to help manage it. And this is, again, the enterprise licensing structure. Reach out to your sales if you are interested into adding this onto your license. It's a minimal cost per year. I believe it's around $10. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm not on the sales side. I'm on the tech side. But if I remember correctly, it's around $10 per license per year. You'll have access then to see your licenses. So whatever licenses you have, once you clicked on that review license area, like Review Standard, Review CAD, or Review Extreme, you then also see what are available. Like some people are maybe on the older license and you want to revoke them. So when they open it up, they don't have that license anymore and they come to you and say, hey, I can't work in Review 2019. Well, that's okay because I wanted you to come to me so you can download 2020, right? As you can see here, there are some still on the older one that maybe we should do that with, but then you have all of your ones here. So as we go a little forward, I'm going to go and click on my serial number, if I could speak this morning, right here, and that's going to bring me to those licenses. And we'll go a little quick because we're at the top of the hour here. Once you're in here, you can see the users. So whatever the computer name is, the user, and then also what version they're on. You have their IP address here, which is, again, blocked out. And when was it last registered or pinged? So they ping to the server. And if they haven't pinged in 15 days, it pulls out of your bucket of perpetual licenses. And then you also have the button of revoke here. So that gives you that access, Chris. You were asking, how do I remove somebody? So if you do have this licensing structure, you can actually revoke somebody. So from here, you click on which one you want to revoke, you revoke their license, and you will see they're revoked from here. Now you cannot uninvoke them from here. They have to re-register their license manually. So from in the register area, from file, from the review, you hit register again and it'll re-register it. But this unregistered pulled the license out of there. And when you do hit re-register, you do have to retype in the product key and the serial number. It doesn't remember it like if you were to just tap unregister. So just be aware of that as well. Let me see if there's any questions in here.
I'm not seeing any in the chat, but I don't know on the YouTube side.
Okay, so can someone reach out so I can do this? Yep, you answered that. Great. So we are a little bit over about a minute. We thank everyone for their time today, for joining us today. And thank you, Kyle, for taking some time off support this morning and helping us out. If there's no further questions, we are going to end it. We hope to see everyone next week on our Morning Coffee Review series. Unfortunately, I have to gotta head out. Thanks, Abe. Have a great one. And see you all next week as well, Abe. And thanks, Kyle, again for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you here, helping us with some admin stuff. We even solved the case live today as well. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure joining y'all.
Yep, thanks. Thank you, Kyle. And everyone have a great rest of your week and look forward to seeing you next week.